All right, we're off the edge, episode 17. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. Joining me, as always, is Cameron Camstradamus Lynch. And today we are going to be talking about the top 10 power rankings. We graded every single draft class in the NFL. And now we're going to get into a little bit of the rest of the NFL and kind of who stands out following the draft, following the draft grades, and following free agency to a degree. So before we get into that, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, review wherever you're consuming this content. And just a quick word from betonline.ag. BetOnline is your number one source for all your basketball info, stats, news, and scores. Get the latest odds and lines and the latest matchup reports for this year's NBA playoffs. BetOnline is your sports intel headquarters this season, as we have you covered for all your insider sports wagering needs, from basketball, MLB, NHL, golf, to UFC and boxing. The fastest and easiest way to get your betting info, including live betting options and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your home. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Be sure to use our promo code Bleav to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online where the game starts. So Cam, we're going to start here and we're going to end here because the entire show is going to be our top 10 power ranking show, right? We know how big of a deal the top 10 is. So if you guys want to get mad at us or want to applaud us, there's a comment section for that. There's also Twitter at JK Bogan for me, at Cameron Lynch 50 for Cameron Lynch, and at Off the Edge Show if you want to yell at the show or give the show some praise. I wouldn't mind either or. It's all fun. So
Definitely.
We're starting from the bottom, going to the top, starting with number 10. And Cam, who do you got for number 10?
Jake, I got the Jags at number 10. The Jags, I think they bolstered themselves up. I think I gave them a B during the draft. And we always talk about this, Jake. The draft is not the end-all be-all, right? And these rankings aren't the end-all be-all because they could go to the season and just flop, right? But the Jaguars, they finished strong last year with their ranking. I Bleav last year they were like number 7, a little bit higher in the power ranking list, but I dropped them down a little bit because other teams crushed it in the draft, right? You talk about the Dolphins, you talk about the Jets, really the Jets, but some folks really crushed it this year. But I got the Jags coming in number 10, Jake, out of the league when it comes to after the draft. You think about some of the pickups that they had in the offseason as well. We're not just thinking about the draft, but just their whole addition. Calvin Ridley's coming back. Jake, we're talking about the betting piece, how important betting literacy is at this point. Calvin Ridley, I think he's going to come back with a vengeance, right? The Jags, they lost in the playoffs. I think Calvin's sitting at home like, dang, if only I was there, things would have been a little bit easier. So I love that piece there. And then, with ETN being a little bit banged up, you got some running backs, Tank Bigsby coming in from Auburn, which is really cool. Anton Harrison coming in at tackle to protect, the quarterback there at the Jags. So I love their picks there, Jake. Any thoughts from you on the Jaguars in that 10th place spot?
Yeah, so I kind of wrestled with that. I had them 10th or 11th. I decided to go with 11th, so they missed mine, but they would be the quote-unquote honorable mention. Now, the interesting little tidbit that I didn't know is when they drafted Anton Harrison, they actually knew that Cam Robinson was going to receive a suspension. So I Bleav it is a substance abuse suspension, if I'm not mistaken, but he is going to miss some games. And so I think Anton Harrison, who you and I both liked coming out of the draft at Oklahoma, I think he's going to get a chance to really establish himself early on. And if he has to kick on over to right tackle when, if and when Cam Robinson comes back at that left tackle spot, so be it. But I think they got a really good player in Cam Robinson, and to add to their running back room, like you said, with Tank Bigsby. And I think, just Travis Etienne is going to be chomping at the bit because I think he was really building off of a true rookie year last year where he just was able to explode. So you have Trevor Lawrence finally with a normal coach and not the worst head coach in NFL history. You talk about that, room that they really kept, together. I mean, they did bring back Ingram. We saw what Ingram could do in the playoffs. You have Kirk. You have Zay Jones, I really like the Jaguars this year. I think there's a very high likelihood that they are going to win that division. But I went with the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 10. Now, this is an interesting one here, and I think I'm going to get some pushback on it. Totally understand. It's a little out there, but I think the Steelers are better than a lot of people think. When you look at their draft, they aced it. It was probably the best draft of anybody. Khan did an incredible job in his first draft, taking over for Colbert, who was the former GM for years. They go out, they get Broderick Jones. So, they made that trade up. They got him. They got Joey Porter Jr. They got Herbig. They got Benton. They got Darnell Washington. So I really loved their draft. And I think they just got a hell of a lot better, and they were already a pretty damn good team. When you look now, you have Benton, Hayward, and Ogunjobi in the interior, not to mention they also have Montravius Adams and Leal, who they got last year. You have TJ Watt. You have Alex Highsmith. You're going to have Joey Porter Jr. with Levi Wallace, with Minka Fitzpatrick, with Keanu Neal. You also have Patrick Peterson, who you signed. The offensive line doesn't seem like it's going to be as much of an issue with Broderick Jones. You go out and you sign Isaac Sumalo. You're going to have opportunities to, get the best out of your offensive line. And are they going to stick with a quarter for a right tackle? I don't know, but there are a lot of options there in that offensive line room. You go out and you get Allen Robinson. You have Calvin Austin, who we just talked about it with Travis Etienne. Like, he missed an entire year. Like, that last year was his rookie year. I feel like Calvin Austin is going to look at it like this year's his rookie year. And, he's going to be that power fourth receiver where he doesn't have to start, but he's going to give him an extra gear that I don't think any of them are going to have in Allen Robinson, George Pickens, and Deontay Johnson. So when you look at all of that, Kenny Pickett going into year two, showing you at the end of the last season just the level his play goes to in crunch time. I think they're going to be in a lot of close games. They got a very, very tough conference that they're playing in. And honestly, they're playing in the best division in football, in my opinion, this year. I think the AFC North is going to be absolutely ridiculous. You have Najee Harris to run the ball. I think he's going to have a bounce back year this year. I like Jaylen Warren. Overall, I just think this team is really good. And they may not be the team that you immediately think of. And I think there are a lot of people that are like really reluctant to give, Kenny Pickett praise since he didn't have the best year. But it's what I saw down the stretch that leads me to believe Kenny Pickett with an improved offensive line, weapons, and a good defense, Cam, they're going to be a top 10 team this year.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, the Steelers, they make it to the playoffs every year, right? They make it to the playoffs every year. So you mentioned the draft. Probably, like I said, one of the better drafts. I mean, I just remember after covering the Steelers draft, how energized I was. I mean, Joey Porter Jr., like that story is, of course, like the top two story from that draft. We talk about the Dallas Cowboys with Deuce Vaughn, that being a great story. But Steelers, they crushed it in the draft and they get better. Jake, you mentioned just the depth that they have now at that defensive line position, the defensive back position. So they're going to create some turnovers. And when it comes to, Kenny Pickett, he has some weapons. We talked about Allen Robinson coming from the Rams. I feel like the Steelers won that trade. So they did a great job on the front on that pickup. They did a great job on the front end of the draft and then, propelled themselves in the second end of the draft. So Steelers, they're looking dangerous, Jake. I think Kenny, hopefully he can come along and, like you mentioned, figured his way out throughout this season. Number 9 for me, Jake. Number 9 for me, I got the Los Angeles Chargers. I got the Los Angeles Chargers from my side on my side last year. I think they were a little bit higher, but they dropped down to 9 for me. We talk about the wide receiver room with Quentin Johnston. We were like, is this a fit? We're not sure. Because we got Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. You mentioned having some type of a flashier player, more of a bolt or a lightning to be injected. But I do think Quentin Johnston will be that guy. Coming from, I would say, just the school he came from with that championship caliber team. He's going to be able to bring that experience from TCU. He's going to be able to bring that to the Chargers. So I love that pickup there. Immediately they help out Justin Herbert, and that's what we want to see. We want to make sure that our quarterback, who's last year his ribs were a little bit torn up, right? But he's going to be able to sling that football around nicely to another receiver, another threat. So that's always good to see. And even going into and then they also address the defensive side. So Tua Pelotu, rushing the passer. We talked about the Chargers, their defensive line being super stout, and so they added someone else to that stout defensive line. It kind of reminds me of the Raiders a little bit, where the Raiders like, hey, we have an influx of great defensive ends and great defensive tackles. Like, what are we going to do with them? So I think the Chargers have that great problem where it's like, all right, we got these elite players on the defensive line. What are we going to do with them? So I think that's just dangerous in itself. You think about the Eagles. So we're going to talk about them, I'm sure, a little bit later, but they're amping up on their defensive line. And so when you think about, Jake, a quarterback stepping in to play a football game and you're lined up against some monsters, that's tough. That's a long day at the office. You just know, like, hey, I got to get this ball out within 2 to 3 seconds. If not, my wife's gonna be complaining back at home because my neck's gonna be hurt. So no, but I love the pickups from the Chargers. We talk about some of the receivers. Darius Davis. I know we talk about having that gadget type player. I think the Chargers kind of address that there. So they got 3 monsters that can go for the deep ball, 50-50 balls, red zone, and then we got Darius Davis who can be there, your gadget guy, and then Max Duggan. Jake, the fact that they got him at number 7, that's insane. So we got someone who can step up off the bench and go win football games. He wins the national championship. The fact that you got him at the 7th round, that's excellent. Chargers, number 9 for me on the power list.
So I like the Chargers. They didn't make my list. Yeah, I thought they had a solid draft, like you and I discussed. I do think that there's something missing with them. I guess really what it comes down to is, I don't know if it's coaching or just late in games, the Chargers do not finish well. And I think we saw that against the Jaguars last year in the playoffs. Perfect example of that, where you have a guy in Trevor Lawrence who threw 4 or 5 interceptions, was able to come away with a win. That shouldn't happen. It's not like it hasn't happened before because cough, cough, Russell Wilson did it. But they have the talent. Don't get me wrong. And Justin Herbert, I mean, he's one of the best quarterbacks in football. I mean, he's fantastic. I don't know what's going on with Austin Eckler. I think that's one thing I really need to figure out. Where's Austin Eckler playing football next year? Is he staying with the Chargers? Like, that's up in the air to me. So I don't really know. I'm not comfortable putting him in the top 10. So number 9, I'm going to go with Miami. The Miami Dolphins. I think they got really good. They make that trade with the Los Angeles Rams, acquiring the rights to Jalen Ramsey, adding him with X Howard, and then you go out and you get Cam Smith in the 2nd round when you don't have a 1st-round pick. You just bolstered your cornerback room. You also have Nick Needham, who I think is underrated. And they have guys like, you talk about Javon Holland and Brandon Jones and Deshaun Elliott in the secondary. They've really done a nice job. They gave away a 1st-round pick to Denver for Bradley Chubb. They have Jerome Baker. They have David Long from Tennessee, the linebacker. You look, Jalen Phillips is a 1st-rounder in his own right, and I think he is going to be an absolute outstanding pass rusher over the course of his career. You got Christian Wilkins. You got Raekwon Davis. You got Zach Seiler. You got Emmanuel Ogbah. I mean, the list really goes on with them. They just have such a nice-looking roster, and really, if Tua stays healthy, the sky's the limit with Miami. I'll be honest with you. I mean, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill are just not guardable in this league. Cedric Wilson, underrated receiver. We saw what he did in Dallas. Didn't really get a chance to do a ton last year, but they really like him. They got Robbie Chosen Anderson. He's somebody that can stretch, go over the top and stretch the defense out. You got Braxton Berrios, who was Mr. Utility for the Jets. So they saw him pretty frequently. There's another guy on this roster, though, Eric Ezukanma from, I believe, Texas Tech. Really liked him in the draft. Goes 4th round in 2022. Don't sleep on him, because this is somebody I think could have a really good preseason and maybe push his way into that rotation. But either way, they fixed the offensive line, at least for the most part. It's a pretty nice offensive line now. You look at it at least and you're like, oh, okay. Teron Armstead, you go out and you get Eichenberg, 2nd round, 2021, Connor Williams, Robert Hunt, and then you have Austin Jackson. You go out and get Isaiah Wynn the other day. I mean, really liking the look of Miami. And I mean, that coach, he can coach, man. You know, Mike McDaniel, his first year, he's got Vic Fangio as his defensive coordinator. Dolphins are going to be a problem.
Yeah, no, I agree. I had him on my list too, Jake, and I figured you would go with him. So I was like, all right, let me just pick another team, right, and see how that goes. But no, the Dolphins, they might have gotten snubbed, well, through their own actions, right, not having a first round pick. But with the few picks that they did have, Jake, they capitalized on them. You got Devon A-Chain, right, coming out of the running back, out of the backfield with that super speed, Jake, that home run speed. So the Dolphins, like you mentioned, just they made some great moves, getting Jalen Ramsey. For the Rams fans, that hurt our soul, bro, because we got Hunter Long, and hey, Jake, I was actually looking at Hunter Long's stats. I saw that he only had maybe about 2 catches 2 years ago. He had 1 catch for 8 yards. So the fact that the Dolphins offloaded that and then brought on Jalen Ramsey, they definitely won that trade. It hurts my heart. We do Bleav in Rams podcast, so it hurts my heart saying that, but we're talking about the Dolphins now and their power ranking. They definitely leveled up this offseason. So shout out to the Dolphins. Great job there. My number 8, Jake, going to the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, you talk about what they did right before the draft. Day before the draft, they lock in Lamar Jackson, former MVP. Thankfully, that happened after Aaron Rodgers got his stuff taken care of. So Aaron Rodgers happens, great. Now let's take care of Lamar Jackson when it comes to the NFL. He's taken care of, highest paid quarterback, and he got what he needed. Odell Beckham, that addition beforehand, right? He's Mr. Football, Jake, right? When you talk about football, when you talk to somebody about football internationally, they're going to, of course, talk about Tom Brady, but they're going to definitely bring up Odell Beckham at some point. So no matter if he is year 8 to 10 in his career, whatever that looks like, he's still going to put butts in seats. So that was a great move by the Ravens. And then picking up Zay Flowers, right? Zay Flower calls Odell, right after the draft, and they had that conversation. So that was really cool. Nelson Aguilar, in free agency, that's a nice pickup as well from the Ravens. So, Lamar has options. Rashad Bateman, right? He has options. He has essentially a whole bunch of first rounders to throw the football to. The previous year, he had DeMarcus Robinson, Sammy Watkins, and Devin Duvernay, and James. So it was a little tough there, but he has now a nice arsenal to throw to. You got Andrews as well, who's a top tight end in the league. So I like the Ravens, Jake. I like how they're cooking this year, so I got them as number 8.
Yeah, I think really the Ravens are always that team on paper or just in general. Preseason, they're always in my top 10. And they're always in contention to be the AFC champion for me going into the season. That's not the case for me this year, but I do have them on the list. I won't tell you where because we'll get to it. But I very much like them, and I think as long as Lamar Jackson's healthy, this team's good enough to win it all. And going out and getting Zay Flowers, I already told you. I mean, I thought he would have been just absolutely electric for the Chargers, and I think he's going to be electric. He gives you that like Antonio Brown-esque, receiving ability. He's so strong at the catch point, but also this is somebody that when you watch him blocking, like he wants to put you in the ground, and it's like, wait a minute, I thought all wide receivers were divas. I thought they didn't care about that stuff. I thought all they cared about was, not getting touched, getting open, and catching the ball in the end zone and doing dances. Goes against everything that I've ever heard, right? I mean, so yeah, Zay Flowers, definitely I'm a fan of his game for sure. But number 8, I actually am going with the Detroit Lions, who let's stop the madness, okay? They are going to open up the season playing against the Kansas City Chiefs. And Cam, you can see who's watched football over the last year and who simply hasn't, because the people who have watched football know why the Lions are playing opening night against the Chiefs, and the people who haven't watched football are the ones complaining about the Lions opening up, opening night. Here's what I'll say to this, okay? The 49ers played Seattle, in the first round of the playoffs. And I'm not going to say what you probably are expecting me to say, because obviously week 18 was not great. and the Lions were hosed and they should have been in the playoffs. I'm going to just say this. I think the Lions at the end of the year, the ball that they were playing, what Dan Campbell was getting out of that team, what Jared Goff was doing with the football, because he hasn't thrown interceptions since week 8? I saw a stat. It was crazy. Just the level that the Lions were playing at the end of last year, they were the third best team in the NFL. Like, I really believe that. I feel like the Lions would have beaten anybody. They could have beaten anybody. They would have beaten almost anybody. I think they could have won the Super Bowl. I know it sounds crazy to say, but that offense wasn't stoppable. That offense was dominant. They were scoring like crazy, and then their defense was starting to play at a decent level towards the end of the year, which people kind of want to pretend to forget about. So when I look at the Lions right now, I mean, sure, Mr. Touchdown last year, Jamal Williams is gone. Okay. Yeah. Sure, they traded away DeAndre Swift. They didn't do it for cap reasons. They did it because, well, they think they found something better. They signed David Montgomery from their rival Chicago Bears for a 3-year deal, and they go out and they draft Jahmyr Gibbs. And I think Gibbs is going to be a star, day one. I think he's going to be absolutely insane in that offense. They got Josh Reynolds, has the familiarity factor with Goff playing in L.A. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's one of the best receivers in the game. Marvin Jones, who is a fan favorite. He's going to scratch the back, the fan service, but he's still a good player. And I think a lot of people forget that because he went to Jacksonville and kind of played more of a veteran leadership role and didn't quite have to get involved as much. He was more of a 4th or a 5th option. I still like, what they have in Khalif Raymond, but man, let me tell you right now, they got this kid out of Iowa, Sam Laporta, in the 2nd round, who is going to be a monster. Okay. Mm-hmm. I tried to warn people. This is the best tight end from the draft. And he goes to the Lions of all teams with Ben Johnson as the offensive coordinator. By the way, big reason this whole thing is working is because Ben Johnson, despite all the offers, despite the fact he probably could have had any of the available head coaching jobs, Ben Johnson chose to stay. He wanted to stay because he saw what they were building. And so with Ben Johnson returning, Jared Goff still at quarterback when they could have had any quarterback they wanted with 2 first-round picks. They could have moved up and gotten any of their guys. They're sticking by Jared Goff. They're sticking by their offensive coordinator. They didn't do something stupid and fire Dan Campbell, right? Aaron Glenn is back as defensive coordinator. So what do? They go out and get Jack Campbell. Wasn't the biggest fan of the pick, but hey, he's a good football player, right? Brian Branch, you have Aiden Hutchinson, last year's first overall pick. You have Cam Sutton, who you get in free agency. You grab Chauncey Gardner-Johnson from the Philadelphia Eagles. That's going to stink for them. It's going to help you. Tracy Walker III's a stud. Kirby Joseph's a stud. We talk about, Illinois being potentially DBU incoming. They've been doing a great job. Emmanuel Mosley, who's very underrated, coming from the San Francisco 49ers. James Houston, who nobody talks about, had like 9 sacks. No one wants to ever mention that guy's name, probably because he was a 6th rounder last year. Huge steal for them. Just wanted to give him some credit. What they've done, they have one of the best offensive lines in football. What the Lions have done is they've taken something that they were good with Stafford, but Stafford was really carrying them for the most part. Their defense was an issue. Their offensive line was really hit or miss. Some years it might be solid. Some years it was awful. They've taken all the capital they got from the Matthew Stafford trade and they've reinvented themselves. They've focused on the issues at hand. Brad Holmes is a big reason for this because Brad Holmes was with the Rams from 2003 to I think it was 2021. So Brad Holmes comes in. They go out and they get a coach that's hungry. This Lions team, there's no reason to say that this Lions team can not only make the playoffs, but they can win the damn Super Bowl.
Okay, hot take. Cut it up. You mentioned something. Ben Johnson staying at the Lions because he sees something special. I think that's really important. I think that's rare because people are going to look to get the bag. the Lions, like you mentioned at the end of the season, were looking super dangerous. No one wanted to play them. Aaron Rodgers. It probably could have been one of the reasons why, hey, while we're leaving this place, it's my last game here. I want to get a win. If I win, do I stay? If I lose, do I go? And maybe in the darkness retreat, he was like, the Lions beat me. It's time to go. You never know. But the Lions looking super dangerous. We talked about the coordinator staying because he saw something important. The team that I have next at number 7, a coordinator that decided to stay, Dan Quinn. Defensive coordinator of the Cowboys. I got the Cowboys at number 7 for me, Jake. The reason why I say that, Dan Quinn was a former coach of the Falcons. So we used to battle with Dan Quinn. I used to play against the Falcons a lot. And so him taking the role as a defensive coordinator of the Cowboys is really cool. And the best thing that I saw during the draft was Michael Parsons doing a podcast. I saw him doing a show and him showing a text to Dan Quinn talking about, hey, we need to go get Mozzie. That's our guy. And Dan Quinn responding like, I'm all about it. Let's go. And so I loved how they moved up in the power ranking because we talk about happy wife, happy life, happy Michael Parsons, happy Cowboys defense. So I love that for the Cowboys. When it comes to scoring touchdowns, they can get it done. So the fact that they are now bolstering up that defensive line times 10 is amazing. I'm just going to read off some of the defensive linemen that they have here, Jake, right? You got Mozzie stepping in. They had some trouble in the run game, so got Mozzie to stop that. Michael Parsons. You got Dorrance Armstrong. You got DeMarcus Lawrence still and Sam Williams. So you got some boys that can really stop the run and go get after the passer. So the fact that the Cowboys got Mozzie and Dan Quinn, that's really awesome. And not to say, Jake, let's put a timeout here. The Cowboys had the best story of the draft, right, with Deuce Vaughn and his dad. That was the best story. So they're just going to jump up a little bit even more, right, in this ranking piece here. But I love the way what they did in the draft. Great stories, great job by them. Luke Shoemaker as well. We talk about a great tight end. He's one of the better tight ends out of the draft. I wouldn't say number 1, right? You mentioned number 1, but Luke is in that top 5 out of the tight ends coming out of the draft. So I love that pick there, where Dak can have someone to throw the football to. So right, he's getting in trouble. Hey, let me dump it off and give it to someone who can make some plays. And then they even double up even more in the draft, right? With more edge rushers. So, hey, the Cowboys are looking dangerous. Like I said, we got Deuce Vaughn to back up the running back room. I know Ezekiel Elliott left, so we got Deuce Vaughn to step in and support. It feels like we have 2 scat backs now. You never know, but Deuce Vaughn, an explosive playmaker. So, yeah, I got the Cowboys, Jake, stepping up in this draft, and they did a good job.
I actually do not have the Cowboys in my top 10. They're another team that missed, as well as the Vikings. I wanted to throw them out there because I'm going to get asked, where are the Vikings? They're not on there. My next one, San Francisco 49ers, number 7.
Nice.
All right. So the 49ers, right? They go out and they get Christian McCaffrey last year to add on to the fact they already gave up capital to go and get Trey Lance. Now, we can sit here and talk about the Trey Lance move being very confusing and not really knowing what direction this team's going in. But let's just talk about what this team is right now, okay? They did go out and get a potential starting caliber safety like we talked about on one of our grade shows, Jair Brown. I really like D. Winters. He has a shot to actually play this year, I think. They have one of the best defenses in football. Now, they go out and get Javon Hargrave. That was overkill. Did they really need to do that? I don't know, but he's really good. They did lose D'Amico Ryans, however. And I think that is going to sting more than people give it credit for. I think Steve Wilkes is very good, but I think D'Amico Ryans was, I don't want to say he was better than Robert Saleh, but he was on that level. And to make it so there was like no turnover at all, well, it makes sense because they were both in the building at the same time. That's not the case with Mr. Wilkes. No. He's a new guy. And so things might be similar, but it's not the same thing as just having a guy come in, to a position where he's already in the building while the other guy's manning that position. So I really do like their defense, but don't be surprised if they aren't as dominant, aren't as well-oiled as they were last year. However, I do think Javon Hargrave, they deserve praise for. I do think going out and getting Isaiah Oliver was an incredibly underrated move that they do deserve praise for. They didn't do a ton in the draft as far as going out and getting guys that can play day one, but I think they got some solid guys, and of course they drafted a kicker that we've already had a laugh track of comedy over. But let's look at it this way, okay? I don't know who's going to be the starter, and I think that's the most concerning thing. So when people ask me, Jake, why do you have San Francisco at 7? Do you just hate them? Is that why? No, that's not why at all. The reason they're at 7 is because I have a legit question mark as to who's going to be the quarterback, and I think it's absolutely fair. Now, you could say Kyle Shanahan's offense is foolproof, and I would say maybe to a degree you're right. I mean, we saw it. We joked about it, right? Jimmy Garoppolo just throws straight down the field. It's the quick one read, quick slant. And it's like no one ever covers it. It's like it's always open. But I don't know if it's going to be Sam Darnold, because right now it sounds like it's going to be Sam Darnold. And if that's the case, that's not the quarterback that you would expect them to go with, right? You'd expect them to go with Brock Purdy. And if they don't go with Brock Purdy, well, I don't know. So I think they have a lot to them. Their offensive line is pretty much going to be the same as last year, which is always a good thing, except for the fact that they are losing their right tackle. He's out, the kid from Notre Dame. I'm totally blanking on his name. Colton McKivitz will take over. But the receivers are pretty much the same. And, the running backs are pretty much the same. So really not a lot changed, which is a good thing when you're a team like the Niners. But I have them at 7, and I think they should definitely be in contention to get back to that NFC title game.
Yeah, I agree, Jake. The fact that I think just starting with Christian McCaffrey, full stop. I think that might have been one of the best mid-season trades and additions to a team that I think I've seen in a minute. And the Rams might have it for a little flash with Baker Mayfield, right? Him stepping off the plane in 48 hours, scoring some touchdowns and winning the game. But the 49ers, I think, I've seen the biggest shift in their gameplay when they got Christian McCaffrey. So I may have like a triple crown, I think, when he first stepped into the field. So it was a crazy adjustment. So 49ers, I love that power ranking, Jake. I'm going to go back to the kicker spot here, right? Because I know you hate talking about the kickers. It's like, hey, let's not spend that much time on the kickers. But we always talk about Robert Aguayo, right? Getting drafted super high, second round by the Buccaneers. And then the 49ers selecting Jake Moody at the third round. Jake, I mean, the 49ers, they score a lot of points on offense, but the fact that they're adding another person that can, I wouldn't say is automatic at scoring points, but that makes them that much more dangerous. So I'm curious to see how they're going to do this year. And you mentioned it, the defensive side of the football. With D'Amico not being there, Jake, that's going to change a lot. We talk about the Rams and, what they've done during the Super Bowl and some of the coordinators that have left. You think about the Eagles this year. They lost both coordinators. I know they're going to be pretty high on our list here, but will they be the same team? We're not sure. So I think the coordinator position is so important because it's like having a chef in the kitchen. We talked about this, having mom cook versus dad cook. So dad may not cook great or mom may not cook great, but if you take one of them away, then who knows what the recipe is going to be like and the ingredients going to be like. So curious to see where that goes for the 49ers, Jake. My next one, Jets, Jets. That's my number 6, Jake. The biggest move during the offseason, which is keep it 100, Aaron Rodgers, right? If Tom Brady moves during the offseason, that's the number one pick. That's the number one story. Aaron Rodgers is second right behind that. Him going to the Jets broke ground in the sports community. So that's why they're number 6 for me, Jake. And their draft pick, Will McDonald. Okay, Jake, the fact that they picked him first, because I know he was your guy. We were talking about him too. We were blue in the face. We weren't really talking about Nolan Smith and all these other guys like, hey, pick them. We were talking about him. He was our biggest sleeper. The only thing for him was he was a little bit light in the pants. But as Salah said during the draft, we're going to get you from that 4 to that 9 technique, my guy, because you're 230 freaking pounds. So
Unreal.
So I think just to see, also to add to this, the progress from last year to this year, I think they were ranked like number 17th in the ranking, and now they jumped up to number 7 for me. I think they made the most progress from last season to this season. And then just going back, to some of their additions, right? Randall Cobb, Alan Lazard, McCole Hardman. I know with Hardman, you give him some slack, right? But Billy Turner, and they drafted Carter Warren. So they got some guys, Jake. They got some guys. They got a center right after that, Joe Tippmann. They got an offensive tackle from Pittsburgh, Carter Warren. So, and then Izzy Abikanda, Jake from Pittsburgh. I mean, these guys gonna be cooking, Jake. They're gonna look pretty dangerous. Come when the season starts. And yeah, I'm just excited to see it. Like I said, Jets, Jets. Jake, I've never been a Jets fan like that, but Saleh coming to the Jets and seeing the changes, I'm gonna have to give me an Aaron Rodgers jersey at this point.
Number 8, it's just gonna look so weird, man. I don't know. That'll be an adjustment. He's in green and he's wearing number 8, not 12. But hey, I like it and I respect it because I mean, let's be honest here. Like Namath even said he could, and he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like that's your number. Like that's retired for a reason. It's cool that he did that. I'm sure fans will give him some bonus points for that. But yeah, I have the Jets on this list, but I'm not going to tell you where. So to be continued. But number 6, I got the Buffalo Bills. Yeah. And I think the Buffalo Bills have to have a real conversation. What are they going to do? Because, I mean, at this point, you have to make the Super Bowl this year. There's no excuses. I mean, you're going to start, like we saw, Stephon Diggs, like the pressure's already mounting, right? I mean, Stephon Diggs, like you could tell. And I just feel as though this Bills team has a lot. And, we saw, their GM, Brandon Beane, and what he came out and said, like, we're not going to put ourselves in a position where we have to blow it up like the Rams did. And it's like, well, the Rams got a Super Bowl. So you gotta find a way to at least get to a Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
You owe it to that community. You owe it to that fan base. That fan base went 4 straight years, lost all 4 Super Bowls. So they got to get at least one ring, my guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
they're trying to jump through tables, Jake, without a championship.
So yeah, I mean, I have them at 6 for that reason, not higher, because right now I feel like they're a really good team. They look good on paper, but there are better teams in their own conference, in their own division. Because
Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's going to be a problem, and if you can't get to the AFC title game, this isn't going to end well. And I think with the Bills going out and getting Dalton Kincaid, some will look at this as this is a luxury pick. I look at this as this is how we get even, right? This is how we win. And, I think Kincaid is going to be that number 2 option. I don't think people are ready for what Dalton Kincaid can do with Josh Allen. This isn't just a tight end coming in and having to learn to play the offensive line and the wide receiver position, which is always the thing I bring up for young tight ends. This is a tight end that's going to be asked to just catch the damn ball. And like you said, throw it up to him, throw the damn ball. And when I look at Dalton Kincaid, he's blessed because he's coming into an opportunity where he's going from Cameron Rising, who's not a bad quarterback himself at Utah, to Josh Allen, who's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, has got pinpoint accuracy. He's got the velocity. He's going to, keep in mind, we talked about this also on the show. He's trying to cut down how much he runs. So this guy's going to throw it up and give him an opportunity. And I think Kincaid is number 2 behind Stephon Diggs. I really believe that in his rookie year. And I think that they're hoping to get something like a Kelsey, something like a Kittle out of him. And I think when they look at other teams around the league, they're like, man, Dawson Knox in the red zone is like automatic. But we need a guy that's going to do everything like in the red zone, right? Not just the red zone. And so I think that's why that they went out and got Dalton Kincaid. He could be a mismatch. He can be a matchup nightmare. And when I look at him, I'm thinking, okay, the Eagles, you got your Dallas Goedert. The Chiefs got your Travis Kelce. 49ers got Kittle. You know what I'm saying? I just think like with the Ravens with Mark Andrews, this is going to be a big slot guy. This is going to be like a combo, just a big wide receiver. Because I don't think they're going to even try to step in the pool of like, hey, we want you to develop as an all-around receiver. They're like, this is the mission. Go out, catch passes, and then we'll work on developing the rest of your game. And I think that's the smart thing to do because he's so good in one area. I actually really like the fit, Cam, and I really liked when they got James Cook last year, and I liked the way he played down the stretch last year. They go out and they get Damian Harris. He's a solid runner. They got Latavius Murray, Naeem Hines. They got Jordan Mims, who I liked in the draft out of Fresno State. They still have Gabe Davis, who can, stretch the field deep down the field. They go out and they get, they had Khalil Shakir, 5th-round pick last year, can make plays after the catch. But Deontay Hardy, who had a kind of a banged-up job last year as a return guy, is kind of a gadget guy in New Orleans. He's coming into this organization. He can do some things. Offensive line is looking good. It's looking stout. And then, you look at the defense and, well, nobody's going to question the Bills' defense. So I like this 6th spot, and I think you could definitely make an argument they should be higher, but they are definitely, in the top 10, no doubt about it.
Yeah, Jake, I think at this point now that we're getting to like our 5, our top 5, top 6 teams, I think we'll have a little bit of crossover here. So you talk about the Bills. I can have them a little bit higher, Jake. I have them a little bit higher, but I'll talk about them now. We talk about the big story, Josh Allen. Hey, that was all season. Josh Allen, we need you to throw more rather than running more. Protect your body. This was coming out of the owners' meeting. So that was a big piece. Okay, fast forward to the draft, Jake. I see a clip actually last night. Folks in the war room, one of the guys was like, man, now that they got Dalton Kincaid, I can sleep great at night, right? One of the guys said, it might have been the GM, Jake, Mr. Bean. He said, I can actually sleep better at night because we got Dalton Kincaid. So going back to your point about the teams that find success have great tight ends. You think about down the street or in the same division with Travis Kelce. The reason why Patrick Mahomes is so successful is he has a Hall of Fame, the best tight end ever to play, but also has other people to throw to, and he has one of the better coaches. let's not look past that. He has one of the better coaches that's probably going to be in the Hall of Fame as well. But I think the key to this is having this offensive line block for him, as in Josh Allen, right? So he didn't have to run so much, but then also having an option to go to if he decides to run. Who is he going to throw it to? Who is going to give it to? So I love how they went in the draft and they got him somebody, and they got him somebody who can block, right? You got him with the Osiris Torrance out of Florida, and then they went and got Justin Short out of Florida. So you got 2 athletes from the same school that could be on the same page. So they're getting him tools to not run the football. And then let's go on the defensive side, Jake. My guy Dorian Williams. Now, we talk about the Camstradamus piece, and it's just crazy the fact that we tied this in here, with Dorian Williams. I know, for me, what got it, Jake, was the dreads. The dreads are what got me when it came to him. And I was like, oh, he reminds me of somebody, right? The Edmonds brother. And so I really liked him there. I'm glad that they picked him. They talk about his coverage skills, Jake. They're next level. When it comes to Dorian, he can run to the football, and so he's going to be that leader on the defensive side. So they got better this year, Jake, the Bills. And I know it took a long time to talk about them, but they were top of my list. Jake, and I'm going to jump to 6 really quick, and I'll pass it to you. I had the Dolphins. I know we talked about the Dolphins a little bit earlier, but we just go back to the Jalen Ramsey trade. I think that's where they won this offseason, was with the Jalen Ramsey trade, and getting – and then some of their picks that they have too in the draft with Devon A-Chain. So, Elijah Higgins, they got another person for Tua to throw the ball to. So I got the Dolphins at number 6, Jake. I know we talked about the Bills. They were your number 7, but the Bills are a little bit up further for me. But the Dolphins, the Bills, they're both crushing it.
So do you have the Bills at 5?
I have the Bills at 5, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. So I got the Ravens, who you already talked about. I got them at 5. And nice. I got to say, Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers, Odell Beckham Jr., Aguilar, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely. I really like Charlie Kohler. No one talks about him, but they were both picked in the 4th round last year, tight ends. So, you got J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards. I really like the look of this offense and everything that's around Lamar Jackson. The offensive line looks stout. You got some big bodies in the offensive line. I mean, Ben Cleveland is a monster. He is absolutely huge. I think he's like 330, 6'7". I mean, he's a huge dude playing guard. You have Ronnie Stanley. You have Tyler Linderbaum. You have Kevin Zeitler, and you have Morgan Moses. And you also have Daniel Falele, the 400-pounder that's behind. So yeah,
who's gonna get through there?
It's brutal. So I really like what they've done for Lamar in actually getting him some weapons. I think Zay Flowers could have a monster season as a rookie because he can make plays all over the field, and Lamar doesn't have the common misconception is that Lamar can't throw the deep ball. He can. And the thing here is that Zay Flowers isn't just a deep ball guy. I love how we see, 5'9", whatever, Zay Flowers is definitely smaller, but we see that 5'9" receiver. Instantly that comes to our mind is, oh, that guy's a deep threat. I mean, Flowers is more than that. He plays above his frame. I just told you, I mean, he wants to block you into the ground. I don't know, man. I think when you look at it, I mean, they got a lot, and they already have a defense that's headlined by guys like Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Williams, Kyle Hamilton, Rock Ya-Sin, Roquan Smith, who they signed before Lamar Jackson, I might add. That was a little weird. But, yeah, I got the Ravens here at 5. I think they're a really good football team. And as long as Lamar's healthy, this team is absolutely a Super Bowl contender.
Yep, I like it. The Ravens looking dangerous, Jake. I'm going to jump a little bit. I'm going to go up to my number 3 pick here, Jake, because I think we're starting to cross paths. But I got number 3, the Cincinnati Bengals, Jake. I got the Cincinnati Bengals up on my list, or number 4. I got the Cincinnati Bengals. Zach Taylor, just what he's doing at Cincinnati is next level. I mean, my man is crushing it. With Joe Burrow and that list there. Talk about just their draft, Jake. I know they signed Orlando Brown Jr. as their left tackle. Y'all are cheating at this point, right? You bring him from the Chiefs. So Orlando Brown Jr. Coming to play tackle. It's like the rich get richer, huh? The rich get richer out here. So it's a great move. And then even going to Lael Collins, Jake, we talked about him and we talk about the draft. A lot of times you get those crazy draft stories. Lael Collins, I had a chance to train with him and he gets hit with some crazy, issue and his draft stock drops. And so he goes, I think, to the Cowboys and balls out there, then goes to the Bengals and finding some success there. So, the fact that they have him, the fact that they've also brought on some great folks on the defensive side as well. We talk about Jordan Battle coming out of Alabama, playing safety, looking dangerous. So that's that defensive back room out of the Crimson Tide, man. The fact that they're stepping into this draft, looking pretty strong here. So they got some boys, Jake. They got some boys. The Bengals always looking strong.
Can't forget about Chuck Sizzle.
Chuck Sizzle, there you go. Chuck Sizz, got to have him. And then, also going in the wide receiver room, Jake, you got Tyler Boyd, but someone to come in and step in for that, Charlie Jones, coming out of
Chuck
Purdue.
Sizzle.
Chuck Sizzle. Sorry, Chuck Sizzle. That's your guy, Chuck Sizzle. Exactly. Stepping in that piece. I think 2.7% drop rate. So he's catching every football that gets thrown his way. So, man, the Bengals, we talk about the rich getting richer, getting Miles Murphy to on the edge, right? At their first pick at number 28 coming out of Clemson. Man.
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah, well, yeah. Let's dub this as we wrap up this show. Let's dub this the Elite Four section. For those of you who are Pokemon fans and know what I'm talking about. The Elite Four section. So you got 4, you got Bengals. 3, you got.
3, I got. I think I had the Bills. I had the Bills. At that 3. I had the Bills at 3, Eagles at 2, and then our guys at 1. Chiefs.
Gotcha. So I had the Jets at 4.
Ah,
The Jets with a mediocre quarterback last year would have been in the playoffs and done damage.
yeah.
So the Jets with Aaron Rodgers, if Aaron Rodgers plays like he did with the back-to-back MVP seasons, they might be hoisting the Lombardi Trophy.
Yeah.
I
Definitely.
mean, that defense is built to win, and that offense, we saw it when Breece Hall went down. They were completely different. But with Breece Hall, he turned a mediocre offense into something to behold, and they gave the Packers fits last year with Breece Hall. Number 3, I had Philly.
Okay. Nice.
Number 2, I had Kansas City, and number 1, I had Cincinnati. The Cincinnati Bengals, I Bleav, are the best team in the NFL. And
wow.
I'll take it a step further. I think they're going to be winning the Super Bowl. I think Joe Burrow, all right, I'm tired of all Joe Burrow's already been to a Super Bowl, and if you lose the first Super Bowl, you don't normally go back. Tired of all that, all right? Yeah. Joe Burrow has played 2 full seasons in the NFL. In those 2 full seasons, a Super Bowl and an AFC title. Okay, I don't really care what people say. Joe Burrow is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He's got a ton of weapons, right? Really good offensive line, like you mentioned, with Orlando Brown Jr. and like Jonah Williams. They go out and they get Irv Smith, who I think is underrated, and we talked about how important these tight ends are. Then the draft, I mean, they hit an A+ in that draft, in my opinion. They already had a really good defense, but they go out and they add Nick Scott from the Rams. You talk about adding Miles Murphy to that rotation. You got Trey Hendrickson, you got Sam Hubbard, Jordan Battle, Dax Hill, Cam Taylor-Britt, Chidobe Awuzie. You go out and get DJ Turner. I mean, my God, this team is stacked, and they are the best team in football until further notice. And I will say this right now, the Chiefs won, right? They won last year. They did. Mm-hmm. That was the first time they've ever beaten Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow Joe Burrow and the Bengals had won 3 other times. So, and that game came down to the wire too. Maybe a couple calls too, if you want to go there. So next time, this could be in Cincinnati, and it could be a different game. Might not even be against the Chiefs, because I'll tell you right now, the AFC is just a dog pile. There are so many talented teams, that I don't know who's going to come away with it. And I feel like we'd be remiss to not mention the Eagles and the fact they won the NFC title last year. They were in the Super Bowl. They were very close to winning it all. I think the Eagles are really the team to beat in the NFC. But after that, it's just the NFC is just not that great. And I think that's kind of the pattern you and I had in our power rankings. I mean, when you look at our top 10s, I have 3 teams in the NFC, 7 out of the AFC. Yeah. I mean, 7 out of the AFC, and think about it, not all of these 7 can even make the playoffs, I don't think. I don't think it's even possible.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, no, and I go to the NFC side, going back to the Eagles, just looking at the defensive linemen that they got, right? Guys that come out of Georgia, that's next level. That's next level with those Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, rushing the passer, and then even going to the Illinois, right? DBU with Sidney Brown. So these guys are hitting everywhere they go, Jake, when it comes to the Eagles. They got Tanner McKee, right, to back up as quarterback. We talked about how important the quarterback position is and how quarterback is currency. So, the Eagles have definitely turned the corner. The NFC is looking like theirs, Jake, at the moment, unless someone else wants to come in and contest. And then going back to the AFC, super stacked. The Chiefs, though, Jake, I know they won last year, but the thing that gets me is their draft picks, Jake. They got someone from Stephen F. Austin, SMU, and Ball State, right? Nick Jones coming out of Ball State, and their 7th round pick and Nick Jones coming out of Ball State might be a starter, right? Come, in a certain amount of weeks, or depending who's next up. So the Chiefs are looking dangerous too, Jake. So I'm excited to see what happens. Like you mentioned, the Bills, they have to win at some point, or someone is going to leave there. And then the Bengals chomping at the bit, right? Joe Burrow, LSU, national championship and champion in college, and then finding the Super Bowl in his first couple of years in the NFL. So I like it, Jake. It's going to be a great year this year.
I agree, man. I mean, we've seen teams get closer than the Bills and still blow it up in 2 years. So it's been kind of a miracle here that the Bills are still somewhat together, because normally you'd have guys wanting out. But huge year for them. They have a lot of pressure on them. Before we leave, just want to wish a happy birthday to Cam's former teammate and one of my all-time favorite players, Robert Quinn. Happy birthday to Robert. He's turning 33 today. He's a former All-Pro, 3-time Pro Bowler. He was the 2013 Pro Football Writers of America Defensive Player of the Year. Should have been AP. Played 7 years with the Rams, 3 years with the Bears, 1 each with Philly, Dallas, and Miami. Started 142 games, 102 sacks, 32 forced fumbles, and he's still playing. We don't know, how that's going to look, how much longer he'll be playing, but it's 2 years ago. He had 18 and a half sacks. The guy is just ridiculous.
Yeah. Happy birthday, Rob. We call him Gumby, Jake, right? Because he can bend, he can do it all. Sack master. Happy birthday, Rob.
So, yeah, happy birthday, Robert Quinn. That is going to do it for us. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, review wherever you're consuming this content. Be sure to follow us at JK Bogan, at Cameron Lynch 50, and at Off the Edge Show. You could also subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. But we'll see you guys soon. Take care, folks. Later.
Peace.